But did you see Clay and Mark Cuban going at it? Full disclosure, I like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban came on my radio show in Indy not once but twice. In fact, he delayed going on SportsCenter for our show, and he's like, yeah, I don't care. This is too much fun. So I like Cuban, but here's the deal. Clay Travis wrote an incredibly, and I mean incredibly researched, smart, adroit article on how the Bud Light catastrophe didn't start with Bud Light. It started with viewership in the NBA. And our fearless leader, Clay Travis, then said, hey, look, you love hopping in my mentions. All right? Why did the NFL set an all-time viewership record last year, as did NCAA men's and women's basketball, but the NBA peaked 25 years ago? Look forward to hearing your analysis. Well, Mark Cuban took the bait, and Mark Cuban went into a variety of things. Now, Mark Cuban is smart. Clay is smart. Here is the response. Because the NFL is more popular, our ratings are up as well. Let me ask you two questions. Why was the NBA more watched than any other TV show on TV, particularly in the young demos, and most popular on social media? And, of course, the obligatory shot, which is what happens to your station and your show, Clay and Buck, when AM radio is taken out of all cars and trucks. See, I get it. You got to give the shot. Now, of course, this wasn't done. Of course, we had more. False NFL, NBA ratings are at a 30-year peak, 30-year lows. Data doesn't lie. Peaked 25 years ago. NFL. College football, men's and women's basketball continue to set records high. Audio evolves. We get 15 million plus podcast downloads a month. There is the response. These are two smart people going at it, okay? Like, if Mark Cuban came at me, I'd be like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Didn't you used to own Motley's or something, man? And that's what I'd do. But then it gets going even more. But wait. There's more. Social media impressions are mostly blank and likely, in my opinion, detract from the popularity of actual NBA games. I think they're a substitute rather than a supplement. Otherwise, NBA ratings wouldn't be collapsing and you'd be crushing the NFL, which is far less popular on social media, instead of getting crushed. But while you're here, let me ask you a question, and this is where you just have no answer if you're an NBA guy. But let me ask you a question. You ready? All right. Should Chinese people have basic rights? I think they should. Do you? Why will the NBA speak out so aggressively on, say, North Carolina bathroom bills, say nothing about China, all while pocketing their billions? Shouldn't basic human rights be a non-negotiable issue for a global brand like the NBA? Now, Clay is coming on at 10:30 to discuss this. This is why, right there, that question is why you cannot take LeBron James or Steve Kerr or Mark Cuban or any Pop or any of these guys serious that are, quote, social justice warriors against our country. All right? But it didn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. We continue on. So you disagree, so you are saying the NBA, so you disagree with the Chinese Communist Party putting people in concentration camps and denying their people basic human rights. We agree. Why not have NBA issue that statement? Because Cuban had said they deserve human rights. I'd be hugely supportive. So would most Americans of all political persuasions. That's right. Most people don't understand the issue with China. I certainly didn't. But the basic thing is this. China pays a lot of money for the NBA. I mean, they are paying and paying and paying and paying and paying. And the money goes to the NBA, and the NBA won't say a word about China. Daryl Morey did. All right? So, I imagine being a billionaire and still being afraid to say what you actually think because I'm worried about communist dictators might think of me. What's the point of having FU money if you're too much of a biatch to even say squat to China? What would you say to someone in your family that called you a... I tell you what I tell my kids. Whatever the argument is, you kick their backside. That's what people who just got their backsides kicked in, they start calling you names. Clay's response, and this pretty much ends it, I tell my kids to stop being a little bash, stand up to Chinese human rights abuses instead of worrying about evil dictators might do to their money. But I want my kids to stand on principle. You clearly put money over everything while pretending otherwise. Good luck, bud. Yeah, we got a Donnybrook. Look, I don't mind a spat on Twitter. A lot of people say you shouldn't. Look, it is what it is. You know, what basic Twitter is two newspapers going at each other in real time. It used to be the Chicago Tribune against the Chicago Sun-Times, and they would battle, right, for scoops and all that. Well, what you got here is bigger than both of those. You've got two big entities going at it in a discussion/argument in real time. This isn't vague. This isn't out here. This isn't, passive aggressive. This is in real time. And I got to tell you, for me personally, I dig it. And again, Clay will be on at 10:30. But there is no denying that if, in fact, you are going to be a political entity, which is what the NBA wants to be. And one of the most ridiculous things in this is when Clay did his article. He talked about Jacob Blake, a serial woman abuser, a violent felon against women, who a woman called to get police to help her, and the idiots at the WNBA actually wore shirts supporting Jacob Blake. You cannot make this stupidity up. What Clay wrote initially is a history lesson, and I encourage all of you to read it. I do. I encourage you all to read it because not only does it talk about failed ratings of the NBA. Not only does it talk about how the NBA may or may not, it may have been the first Anheuser-Busch, but it really discusses the history looking back at the NBA's political activism. It talks about how ridiculous it is, how false it is, how full of crap it is, and I encourage you to disagree with it. Hey, why not? Maybe you think the WNBA should talk about Jacob Blake. Maybe you think the WNBA women should support Jacob Blake, a serial felon woman abuser. I personally think it's absurd. I think it's idiotic, but I got to tell you, everybody is entitled to their own opinions. But this right here is a history lesson. Or you can go to the Indy Star and read about Greg Doyle's cats and his dogs and how a 90-year-old guy, whatever. He's great with the 90-year-old guy stuff. You can read the USA Today and read Dan Wetzel complaining about something, or you can read real journalism. And that's exactly what that is right there. That article gives you a perspective and a history lesson that you won't find anywhere in the mainstream media, and you can say I'm kissing the backside of my boss, but I will say this. Clay's written a lot of things that I have not commented on. Clay's written a lot of articles that I've read and go, yeah, that's really good. But this one, ladies and gentlemen, this one right here smacked me right between the nose, particularly as we continue to discuss the stupidity, the utter stupidity of WNBA people, the women.